Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the next video in the basics of Python where we are trying to understand the Python in a step-by-step manner, and topic for today's video is comments and variables. My name is Mukesh Kala. I am a 4 times UiPath most valuable professional, certified solution architect and an advanced RPA developer. And recently I have also got the LinkedIn top voice. On the screen you see my LinkedIn details. Feel free to send me a connection request and I would be happy to be part of your network. Also, in case you are coming to the channel for the first time and you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel to get the next videos in the same playlist. Having said that, let's get started. Okay, so in the previous videos of the playlist, we have seen how we can install Python in a step-by-step manner, and I hope now every one of you have Python installed in your computer. If not, please do watch the previous video where I have explained installing of Python in a step-by-step manner. Okay. Next, to run the Python, we need an editor. I have chosen VS Code in this tutorial. You are free to choose any other editor in case you want to go with VS Code and you do not have the VS Code. I have also a small video which is close to 3-4 minutes. Just watch that video and you should have the VS Code installed in your computer. Okay, so first thing first, we will go back to the VS Code and we'll start working on the same project which we created in our last tutorial where we just said hello world. Okay, so now I'm going back to my VS Code. Okay, so to launch the VS Code, I'll go to my start menu and I will just search here VS Code, and that should give me this guy, which is the Visual Studio Code, right? Okay, so in the Visual Code, this is the same Python project which we created last time, and this is the same virtual environment which we have created. Okay, I'll just drag this a little bit, right? And today, to get started with, the first thing which we want to talk today is comments, and the next thing which I want to talk about is the variables. Okay, so now the first thing first, I will go here and I will create a new file. So you can click on this Python project and you see this small plus button. Click on that and I will call this as comments.py because that is the extension for writing the Python. Okay, so now why do we need comments and what exactly that comments mean, right? So for example, you are writing a code in Python, right? So sometimes you write very big code. Now after some time, when you come back, it's difficult for us to remember what I wrote the code on that day. What was this functionality for? What is this function doing, right? So as a best practice, whenever we write any programming languages, we always put comments. We also put annotation. If you are someone who is coming from the UiPath background, you would understand that we put comments, we put annotations on the sequence, right? So the same concept is applicable in Python also, where you can write comments so that you don't forget that what that code was actually for, right? So in Python we have two kinds of comments. The first comment is the single line comment, where if I have to comment a single line, that's a single line comment, and the other thing is multi-line comments, where I want to comment more than one line. Okay, comment simply means that when the program will run, all those things which are marked as comments would be ignored by the interpreter and that will not give you any results. So comments are something which is only making sense for the developer. This is also helpful when you have a team and you are working on a team project and we have a lot of developers working on the same project, right? So that time, to make it as a good practice, we always put comments on the top of the code, so the other person understand that what code is this and what is this functionality for. Okay, so that's what it's comment all about, and we have two types, as I already told, single line and the multi-line. Okay, so in our comments.py file, I'll just go here and I will try to print something which is using this print, and in double quotes I say today we are learning comments. Okay, and this is just a simple print statement. We'll just go here and I'll say execute by clicking on the stop, run the Python file. Okay, and in the terminal we should have the output which says today we are learning the comments, right? So but where is the comment? So to put the single line comment, you use something which is called hash. Now whatever you write after hash, that would be treated as a single line comment, right? So I can say this is a single line comment. okay, and whatever after that you write, that will be executed, right? So if I just write it like this and I go and say execute, run the Python file, right, you would still see the same output, which is today we are learning the comments, right? We are not getting, which is here, right? So if I just copy this and after that, let's say I say this is, maybe I'll just write it like this, sentence anything, right, sentence 1, and after that I put one more comment like this, say this is the other single line comment, right? So now if I execute this, you will notice that we are getting the output as in the terminal, we are getting as sentence 1, and then we are getting today we are learning the comments, right? We are not getting this thing. Now if we talk about the benefits, you can clearly see that now by looking at this code, anybody can realize that okay, this is the comment and that is why this comment was written. Okay, so this was the single line comment, right? Now let's, sometime what happens, you have to write multi-line comments, right? So for example, this is a single line comments and I am creating a project for Python, so I would like to put some details like the project is maybe learning comments, right? And then I also want to put, say, let's say the date, right? So I want to put, let's say I'll just write today's date like this, right? And then I want to also put the developer name, right, Mukesh, right? I want to write a paragraph of comments, right? But every time putting hash that does not make sense, right? Because hash is only for a single line comment, right? What if I have a better way where I can put multi-line comments, that a group of lines I can just comment together, right? How we can do that? And that's what we call the multi-line comments, right? So I'll just remove this hash, okay, from all this, okay, and now I want Python to treat this complete thing as a comment, right? So what I can do is I'll just go to the top and I'll put like this 1 2 3 double quotes and 3 double quotes, right? So I'll copy, maybe cut this and I'll put it after this, right? So whatever you put in 3 quotes, 1 2 3 double quotes, all of that would be treated as a comment, right? So now this thing is treated as a comment, and now if anything I execute before this, right, so I'll just go here. Before that I say that today we are learning comments, and then we say that print maybe multi-line comments, okay, and then let's say this is another example of multi-line comments, that is again a comment, and today we are learning comments, right? So today we are learning maybe multi-line, right, something like this, right? So now if I just go and say execute, only the things which is not a comment will be executed. Today we are learning comments, multi-line comments, and today we are learning multi-line comments, right? So that's how you actually put the comments, right? One other use of comment is, let's say you have a very big code, right, and you are writing some code, you are writing some functionality, right, and there is a piece of code which you do not want to execute when you run the file. So when I go here and I click on run this file, what is happening, this is executing all these code one by one, right? Now I do not want to execute this print statement, this print statement, or this print statement. I only want to execute, let's say, this last one, right? So temporary I can just go here and I say comment this code, or I can just temporary comment this code. If it is a multi-line, we just put the 3 dots, right? Now what happened, now if I save this, go here and execute this, what would happen, it is only going to execute the parts which is not commented, right? So it's a good way when you are trying to debug something, or when you are trying to find some issues, writing some logic, and you do not want to execute the complete piece of code. That is also the place where you can use the comments, right? So 2 types of comments in Python, one is the single line and one is the multi-line comments. Okay, so now I hope you got a clear idea of the single line and the multi-line comments, right? So the next topic for today is the variables, right? So people who are coming from programming background, I hope you guys understand what exactly is a variable. That is the same thing which you see in the other programming language, C Sharp, Java, or for that matter UiPath, right? But for the people who are looking this for the first time, a variable is something which can hold a value, right? Which can hold a value, we call that as a variable. Take a simple example. You are trying to write a code, or you are trying to write an automation, right, where you are expecting some input from the user. Now when the user is providing his name, let's say Mukesh, now in that time the variable should be of type string. When the user is providing his phone number, at that time the variable would be of type integer. When the user is providing, let's say, the age, at that time also the variable would be integer. If sometime he is providing a value which is in decimal, then I would like to have something which is called a decimal type of variables, right? So programming language has this concept of variable where you have to create variables to store the values, right? But if you remember, when I was talking about the basics of Python, I told you guys that we do not need to declare and initialize the variables. What do I mean by that? I simply mean that if you are having a programming background, you might have seen, right, whenever we use variables, first I have to tell the programming language that what data I want to store in this variable. If I have to store string, then I need to tell the programming language that hey, this is a variable and this is going to be of type string. This is a variable and this is going to be of type integer. We have to first tell the programming language. However, that is not the case in Python. Here you do not need to declare or initialize the variable. You can directly use it, right? Let me show you by that example and then you would be able to understand. Okay, and variables are again of different type. The common ones are string, integer, boolean, float, and all those stuff, right? Let's see that in example, that how we can use and create variables in Python. Okay, so I'm going back to my Python and comments. I hope you guys understand. So I'll go here, I'll create a new guy and I call this as variables dot py, right? Dot py, because we are writing the Python. Okay, and that should create variable dot py. The terminal was getting busy, so to clear the terminal I just write here cls, which means clear the screen, and that will clear the terminal for you. Okay, now here we are trying to use the variable. So the first thing first, we can add a comments. Now I hope you guys understand how do we write comments, right? So here we are maybe discussing variables. Okay, and that way that line would be omitted. Okay, now to create the variable, just write the name of the variable, right? So for example, I want to store a name, so I can just go here and I write name, right? I want to create a variable for age. I'll just go and create a variable for age. Phone number, right? That's how you create variable, right? But now one thing, first difference you should notice here is that I am not telling Python that hey, this is a string, or this is a number, integer, or this is an integer, right? How that will be decided? As soon as you pass the value to that variable, right? So for the name, I am telling that the value we should hold is maybe Mukeshkala, and now this will automatically become a type of string, right? When I say about age, I can just go here and say the age for Mukesh is 21. Okay, and when it come to the phone number, I can again pass like this. So now as you can see, as soon as I pass the value to the variable, they are automatically assigned, right? So I explicitly have not to tell the Python that hey, this is a string, or this is an integer, or this is a boolean, or this is a double, right? So for example, I want to store the value of pi, right? So I hope you guys remember the value of pi, 3.147. As soon as I type the value, it automatically understand that what kind of data it is. And this thing is called dynamically typed language, where you do not have to declare the data type for the variables, right? Now if I have to use it, I can just simply go and use them, right? So I can say print, right? And now instead of printing the hard-coded value, I'll just say print name, and that's it, right? If I want to print age, I can say print age, like that, right? Let's try to save this and control plus S, and then to run this you can say run the Python file, and you can see variable.py Mukeshkala and 21 is printed, right? Similarly, you can also create the other kind of variables. Let's say is available, right? Kind of a question. And now when I pass the value like this, false, right? And then I can print that variable like is available, right? And that should print that variable. I'll go and say run, and now you can see here all the values are getting printed. Okay, now one thing here is you can always have the variable name starting with underscore, such as underscore, maybe something like new variable, and then I can just say print, and then here I say underscore new variable. Save this and run this file, and you can see that I have got this one. Okay, so that means that I can also have the variable name starting with underscore, right? What happens if I just try to create a variable like this, and then I try to pass it a value of, right? Now you see I am getting an error here which says statement must be separated by new line or semicolons, right? So you cannot have a variable which is starting with integers. Okay, if I just put a underscore here, then it start work, or simply if I just put here a alphabet, then also it will start working, right? So you cannot have the variable starting with numbers. Okay, so that is the thing you should remember. Okay, and lastly, there are some of the best practices which you should follow when creating the variables. The first thing first is you should have a proper name for the things, right? So for example, you can see that I have put here name, age, phone number, pi is available. But if you see this underscore new var, and after some time you come here and say that, hey, what is this new variable? Nobody will be able to know that what is this new variable for, right? So that means that we need to have a proper naming convention to the variables, right? One good practice is to use it like this. The other way is, for example, if you want to have two things like first name or second name, right? You can always create the variables like this, first underscore name, like this, right? And I'll say subscribe. So that way you can create the variables followed by two words, right? Instead of clubbing it, you can use this, right? So one best practice of using the variables. The second thing which I already told is make sure that you have a proper name. You can always use the variable like this x, but you won't be able to know that what these variables are doing, right? So make sure that you always use the proper naming conventions. Okay, and lastly, the variable's name can start with underscore as well. Okay, there is one important thing which I want to tell you guys is that the variable names are case sensitive. What do I mean by that? I have a variable here which is name. I create one more variable called name, right? And I put here Python. So now I have two variables, one is name and one is name. Both exactly are the same, right? So what happens if I'll just comment all of this, right? So to comment, we can just use the double quotes, right? Like this, three quotes. I'll copy this and I'll put it at the end. So that way all of this will not execute, right? It changed the color, right? So I have one variable name and one I have put it here. Now if I just go here and I say print, and now if I try to use the name, what do you think? Which one is going to execute, right? Let's go and find it out. It's executed the first one. And when I actually put the capital one, then I go and execute, and then I'm getting the Python. But what happens if I just execute this? name, which is not a variable here. I say print error which says that name is not defined, right? Because small name is defined, all caps is defined, but this is not defined, right? So that means that the variable names are case sensitive, right? So make sure that you properly differentiate between the name of the variables, right? So that was a quick demo on how you can declare the variables and how you can use it, right? So I hope this session was helpful, and in case you have any more questions, any more doubts, feel free to write me in the comments, or you can also drop me an email as well, right? Okay, so lastly, I just have one request for you guys, is that while you are watching these tutorials, I would highly recommend you to please open the terminal and practice along the videos, right? That way you will have a better understanding and you would be able to figure out a lot of things by yourself, right? So that is just a humble request, right? So with that, I would like to wrap this video here. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video where we are going to discuss the next topics in the Python series.